With a society so focused on weight and looking good, there is a heightened pressure to be slim or at least a certain waist size. The stigma is that women should be between a size 4 to 6 in order to be considered skinny or a healthy weight. For men, the stigma is that they need to be bodybuilders or be muscular to be considered as fit and good looking. The hype from media about fad diets. Conflicting claims, testimonials, and hype by so called experts can confuse even the most informed consumer. The bottom line is simple. If a diet or product sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There are no foods or pills that magically burn fat. No superfoods will alter your waist size overnight. No products will miraculously melt away while you watch TV or sleep. Some ingredients and supplements and herbal products can be dangerous and even deadly for some people. Fad diets. A fad is a trend that lasts for a short amount of time and is usually tied to a marketing tool that is used to entice the average consumer to purchase or buy a product in order to get a quick change in your body weight. Usually, you're looking for a change in your waist measurements, in your chest size, or you're trying to build bulk in terms of muscle or create more what they call a six pack or more defined look in your body. The most popular fads tend to change from year to year, but the promises they make don't. Diets such as the ketogenic diet, the Whole 30, the paleo diet, juice cleanses, and even intermittent fasting are all fads. A diet is a regimen of eating and drinking sparingly so as to reduce one's weight. Popular fad diets. The gluten free diet is the one we're going to start off with first. And so, a gluten free diet is a diet that is free of gluten in food. This diet is a diet that is different from most fad diets that are usually recommended by health professionals, in that usually if a person has to have a gluten-free diet, it's because they have a disease. So gluten is a protein complex found in the grains wheat, barley, and rye. Gluten is present in some forms of oats but does not naturally occur in oats. Typically, gluten is in oats because the oats are prepared in a factory that creates oats. So, oats can contain gluten by being cross contaminated by the oats being processed in a plant that has food that contains gluten. So, it's very important when you're looking for gluten free products that you make sure that you read the labels and see that the label says that the item is gluten free. So let's talk about the gluten-free labels. Here you see a label that is a certified gluten-free label, and the gluten-free label is a product which carries a third-party gluten-free certification, such as that as GIG's Gluten-Free Certification Organization, GFCO. It is considered to be safe for gluten-free consumers. If a product is not certified gluten-free but bears a gluten-free claim and is regulated by the FDA or Food and Drug Administration, it is considered to be safe to consume. The Food and Drug Administration labels gluten-free food. The label also applies to products labeled no gluten, free of gluten, or without gluten. So you still might be asking yourself, what makes the gluten-free diet different? Gluten can negatively impact someone's health unknowingly. In the United States, approximately 1 in 141 individuals are diagnosed with celiac disease, a disease that comes from having intolerance of consuming a protein found in gluten, a lifelong condition which damages the lining of the small intestine and prevents it from absorbing parts of the food that are important for your health. The damage is due to a reaction from eating gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and sometimes oats. When some have a sensitivity to gluten, they have been diagnosed with the disease called the celiac disease. The celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that impacts the body if there is a resistance to the protein gluten. If the person has the celiac disease, they cannot eat foods or products that contain gluten because it impacts their immune system in a negative way by damaging the villi. The lining of the intestines contains areas called villi, which help absorb nutrients. This results in an inability of the body to absorb nutrients properly. Individuals may become malnourished despite how much food they may eat due to this disease. Let's look at this display for what happens inside of the body if someone has the celiac disease. In a healthy small intestine, tiny hair-like projections called villi absorb nutrients from food. When people with the celiac disease eat foods containing wheat, barley, or rye, the body's immune system attacks the gluten proteins. So as you can see here, there's the celiac disease. Here are the villi, they're destroyed. There's your small intestine. The villi are taking over and damaging the intestine. The immune response also destroys the villi, leading to nutritional deficiencies. So when the villi comes into the body, through the esophagus and goes into the stomach and through the liver, pancreas, at some point it starts to impact the intestine. Thus, the body starts to try and fight off the foreign substance known as the gluten protein that is found in the food, and then you have this process that happens. And so basically it starts to break down the small intestines eventually, and eventually you may have to seek professional help from a professional physician or someone who specializes in nutrition. Next, we're going to take a look at a list of food items that are not gluten-free. We're not going to go through the entire list, but we are going to talk about most of the most important ones. So you have your barbecue sauce, breaded fish, chicken, and shrimp, bread, potato bread, rice bread, canned and dried soup, cereal, certain brands, cookies and cake, crackers, flavored potato chips, frozen dinners, pasta, pies, ice cream, salad dressing, soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, and other food items. Here is a picture of some foods that are not gluten-free. Foods that are not gluten-free are foods that are processed and prepared and they contain gluten. So here we have some oatmeal, and like we talked about before in one of the previous slides, some of the oats can be contaminated with gluten because they are processed in a plant that has food that contains gluten. Potato chips is another common food that gluten is in. Pasta is another big one. And so this pretty much is a big part of the American diet. And so a lot of people have no idea that this food actually impacts their health. Here are some examples of some gluten-free foods. And so foods that are processed and prepared contain typically, these actually are gluten foods. Here is a list of food and beverages that are gluten-free. We got citrus fruits, oranges and grapefruit, bananas, apples, berries, peaches, pears. Some vegetables that are gluten-free are cauliflower and broccoli, greens such as spinach, kale, and Swiss chard, starchy vegetables including potatoes, corn, and squash, bell peppers, mushrooms, onions, carrots, radishes, and green beans. And so as far as your gluten-free beverages, you have water, 100% fruit juice, coffee, tea, some alcoholic beverages including wine, hard cider, beer made from gluten-free grains such as buckwheat and sorghum. Sports drinks such as soda and energy drinks and lemonade are all considered to be gluten-free beverages. Here are some ingredients and foods to avoid that are not gluten-free. Wheat, including all types of wheat, such as milk, rye, barley, oats, unless certified gluten free, malt, brewer's yeast, and some drinks that are not gluten free: malted milk drinks, beers, only certain ones, ales, and lagers, made from gluten containing grains, non distilled liquors, and other malt beverages such as wine coolers. Some of the symptoms of being sensitive to gluten are: you'll have pain in your abdomen, your joints, gastrointestinal pain with belching, diarrhea, fat in the stool, heartburn, indigestion, nausea, vomiting, or flatulence. In the whole body, you can have or experience bone loss, fatigue, or malnutrition. If you do have malnutrition, that means that your body will lack energy and you will seem very tired and lethargic a lot. From a developmental standpoint, you have delayed puberty or slow growth, which is a little bit more popular amongst younger youth. Also common is cramping, itching, lactose intolerant, skin rash, or weight loss. Overall, the gluten free diet is highly recommended for anyone who struggles with consuming food containing the protein gluten. And so, like we talked about, there are different signs that will make you aware that you're gluten. And there are a couple of things that you can do if you find out that you are sensitive to gluten. If you are allergic to gluten, or if someone you know is allergic to gluten, they will experience the following symptoms. They may have hives or skin rash, nausea, stomach cramps, indigestion, vomiting or diarrhea, stuffy or runny nose, sneezing, headaches, asthma, anaphylaxis, a potentially life-threatening reaction that can impair breathing and send the body into shock. And typically, if you are allergic to gluten, your face will possibly swell within 30 minutes to an hour of consuming the food with gluten. It's very important that if you do start to swell, especially in your neck or esophagus area, that you try to seek medical treatment by either using what they call an EpiPen if you're used to having allergic reactions and you have one on hand. If you do not, then you need to get to an emergency room immediately because that means your airflow could be completely shut off. And so it is very important, if you've ever had a reaction to any kind of food that you eat, that you seek out a professional opinion from a doctor who will run a test for you to determine if you have an allergy to gluten. And in my professional opinion, it's best that you do seek professional help from a dietitian or from a doctor who will make a referral to a dietitian or a nutritionist who can provide you with some professional assistance and advice on what to do if you do have allergies to gluten. And they can also prescribe you a specific medication to prevent any further allergic reactions that may occur. And they can also provide you with a more detailed list of what kind of foods that you're allergic to. Like we discussed before, if you do have certain reactions to food that you consume in a home, it's best that you stop consuming the food that gave you the reaction in the first place. And that's one of the easiest ways to prevent yourself from having an allergic reaction. Some of the benefits of the gluten free diet are that in some clinical trials, they've looked at the benefits of the diet, and among people who do not have celiac disease or who have non-celiac gluten sensitivity, they experience weight loss, improved health, improved gastrointestinal health, and improved athletic performance. And this is not a all exhaustive list of the benefits of having a gluten free diet. And so You have to pretty much choose what is best for your health. And that concludes our section about or discussion about gluten-free diets. And we will move on to talking about the Mediterranean diet. And we will be hearing from Dr. Christopher Grimes about some benefits of the Mediterranean diet, what it is, and just some fun facts about some foods that you can eat if you decide to take a look at the Mediterranean diet and give it a try.
Okay, everyone. It's good to be with you today. My name is Dr. Chris Grimes, and I'm an associate professor at Kentucky State University in the area of nutrition and health. So, the Mediterranean diet is similar to USDA dietary guidelines. And so, if you understand dietary guidelines, if you know what ChooseMyPlate.gov recommends, then you will recognize much of what we're going to talk about. There are a few exceptions where it's slightly stricter than those guidelines, but generally speaking, the Mediterranean diet is just a very healthy diet. The Mediterranean diet includes all 5 food groups that are present in the USDA guidelines, and so that includes fruits and vegetables, protein, dairy, and grains. One exception is that when it comes to grains, whereas the USDA recommends that you make half of your grains whole and the other half would be made of refined grains, the Mediterranean diet recommends that all grains are whole grains, with just a few exceptions, and so that might be with like a dessert or something like that that you occasionally eat. So they really emphasize whole grains and whole foods, for that matter. And so the foods that are included, we've already mentioned this, but we'll just kind of go back over it. Number 1, fruits and veggies, obviously. And so any healthy diet is going to include an abundance of fruits and vegetables. Second, whole grains, beans and lentils, which is a very lean protein in there. Olive oil, which is very healthy. It has omega fats and omega unsaturated fats, which are great for lowering cholesterol, great for improving heart health. They're a little higher in calorie, but with that in comparison to other fats and oils, olive oil is definitely the way to go. Nuts and seeds are included in there as well. Again, a little bit higher calorie, but really good oils and a good source of lean protein. And then you have fish, which is a great lean meat. Eggs and dairy, which typically include vitamin D, and then of course dairy has the calcium that you need daily, and so we want to include that. Poultry in moderation, and so you want to make sure that and that poultry is it's not fried chicken or fried turkey, but these would be baked or roasted or grilled possibly chickens. And then red wine in moderation for the antioxidant properties and the heart health properties. So some of the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet, it's high in fiber, which reduces cholesterol. It also it reduces inflammation, which is associated with heart disease. It also helps digestion, and so individuals who have a high fiber diet typically don't have some of the digestional issues that other people who are focused on simple sugars and things like that have. And in 2015, there was a study in a peer-reviewed journal that basically demonstrated that the introduction of olive oil, specifically extra virgin olive oil, reduced cardiovascular disease by at least 15%. And so right there we see that there is a benefit in this diet. And it's been shown, this diet has been shown to help with weight loss and weight management, even though it has a high calorie dense inclusion of foods. And so the trick though is that a lot of these foods, even though that they are calorie dense, they are also nutrient dense, and so they're very healthy. More health benefits. One of the best benefits from this diet is also that some of the nutrients that are included, including phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are these compounds in plants. They're found in fruits and vegetables, in different grains and beans and plants. In fact, some of these phytochemicals are actually what produce the color in certain plants. And what they do is they basically act as antioxidants, dietary antioxidants that fight against oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is a really big concern because research has demonstrated that many of the diseases that we succumb to, for instance, cancer and Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, diabetes, all of these diseases have a very strong correlation with increased oxidative stress. And so the more antioxidants that we can have in our diet, that we can promote that, then the better chance we have to ward off those harmful chemicals and harmful molecules in our body. One of the biggest drawbacks, which we've mentioned, is that this diet tends to or could have a high amount of olive oil, which does increase calories. However, you can moderate that, and so you can fluctuate that depending on what your calorie intake is for the day. Now, one of the nice things about this diet is that the Mediterranean diet is we call it a diet because there is some specific foods that you include or exclude, but in general, it's just a healthy diet. And so one of the things that we say about that I have an issue with as far as fad diets is that sometimes it's very hard to maintain those for long periods of time. And so if you go on the Atkins diet or the keto diet or some other type of extreme diet, typically that's for a short period of time. You lose a ton of weight, and then all of a sudden now you're adding it back. With the Mediterranean diet, this truly is a diet that could be a lifestyle that doesn't exclude important features of the My Plate, and so you have all your food groups there. They're healthy choices, and so it's something that you could actually use to change your lifestyle. So which diet is better? If you're going to pit gluten-free diets up against Mediterranean diets, if you had to choose one, which is better? Well, the gluten-free diet is not necessarily a healthier, except for those individuals who are prescribed this diet because they have celiac disease or some sort of gluten sensitivity. And actually, I typically don't recommend gluten-free diets to individuals who do not have these types of disorders or conditions because it does greatly restrict what you can eat and what you can choose, and so it makes it more difficult. It can be more expensive, and when you're excluding so many different types of foods, it becomes a little bit more difficult to get some of the nutrients that we need in our diet. So for the general population, the presence or absence of gluten it doesn't really relate to diet quality. And so gluten in your food is not going to make an impact one way or the other if you are a healthy individual without some sort of gluten sensitivity. In this case, both diets are options, though, for anyone who is trying to maintain a healthy weight. The gluten-free diet is a required diet if you have an intolerance to gluten, but the Mediterranean diet is one that pretty much anybody can choose if you are trying to eat healthy. So how to maintain a healthy weight without relying on fad diets? And this is what I really want to encourage. First, start with a meal plan that is easy and that can work for you, and think about lifestyle changes. Instead of just trying to think of a period of time where you're trying to lose 10 pounds before a certain period of time, think about going more slowly. Think about trying to lose maybe 1 pound a week. And for those who are trying to lose an abundance of weight, 30, 40 pounds, that may seem slow, but in the end, you'll have a better retention of that weight loss. Focus on eating in a way that helps you feel nourished and satisfied and energized, and focus on eating ways that don't leave you feeling full and stuffed and just kind of yucky afterwards. And a lot of times that happens when we eat things that are unhealthy. And so eat those foods that's basically good fuel for your body. Like I mentioned, aim to drop pounds slowly in a way that can be maintained over long term. And then really, when it comes to calories, some people don't advocate counting calories. Some people do. I believe that counting calories is a helpful thing as long as those calories are healthy calories. And so not all calories are created equal in that regard. And so the USDA does recommend eating a diet for the majority of people, eating a diet that is less than 2,000 calories. And for many individuals, that's going to be between 1,500 and 1,800 calories, depending upon your age and gender and size and all those sorts of things. So recommendations continued here. Follow a healthy eating plan across the lifespan. Try not to focus on unless you are an athlete that's looking to meet specific requirements. Think about lifestyle changes and eating healthy over a lifespan so that you can thrive throughout life. Focus on variety. focus on nutrient-dense foods, and focus on lower portion sizes. And so focus, experiment with foods, experiment with different recipes, experiment with new foods, new vegetables, new fruits that you've never tried before. Limit your calories from those added sugars, from the candies, the cakes, the bake. And I'm going to tell you, I have a sweet tooth, but you want to limit that from your diet and reduce the amount of sodium you have. Because that will improve your heart health over the long period of time. Choose healthy beverages. Many of us, including myself, really like a soft drink, even diet drinks. So I drink a lot of diet soda, and it's sort of my one vice. I don't eat a bunch of junk, but I do like my diet soda. But choose water if at all possible. Choose water and incorporate that into your diet regularly. And support eat healthy eating patterns for everyone in your home. It's much easier to eat healthy and to make a healthy lifestyle changes if everybody is bought into this, everybody in the family. Now let's talk just briefly about physical activity, because this is important no matter what diet you're choosing. Regular physical activity is always recommended, and you want to do that based upon your own skill level and your own health level. And so you'll want to check with a physician or a dietitian before you begin too much. But the level of exercise that you're going to need is based upon your age, race, BMI, so your height and your weight. It's also based upon what your intentions are. So if you're just trying to maintain a healthy weight, then possibly walking on a regular basis, 30 to 60 minutes a day at a light to moderate rate, that could end up working for you. However, if you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to get more lean, then you may need to throw in some weightlifting and resistance training. And I recommend that for anybody, especially as you're getting older, to work in some type of resistance training, even if it's with resistance bands or body weight exercises, because that's going to help you with bone strength as you age. And so like I said, you want to consult a dietitian or a physician before you start any type of serious exercise regimen, especially if you have past injuries or past conditions that could be exacerbated by that exercise. And the amount of time that you want to work out. So for like children, we recommend 60 minutes a day. For adults, it's about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And that might be moderate walking or jogging. You could be swimming, maybe biking, and also lifting weights in there. However, as long as you are healthy, as long as you don't have injury, you can't go wrong with more physical activity. Now, you want to be careful and moderate that. Too much of anything could be a bad thing. Eating the wrong combination of foods doesn't cause your metabolism to change all of a sudden. That's not the way our metabolism works. So when we think of eating, what we want to do is just consider eating healthy foods at all times and making sure that there's a variety of those different foods on our plates. And then another thing to mention is that we hear the word diet, and all of a sudden we think about a specific fad diet like the Mediterranean diet, the gluten diet, the keto diet. But the truth is that the word diet began not as some sort of fad program, but actually is just what we eat. And so we talk about a healthy diet. We're not talking about a fad diet. We're talking about a lifestyle of eating healthy. And so when you are limiting food choices or following rigid meal plans, that can be overwhelming. And it can actually cause some problems, both psychologically, and it can cause retention of that weight loss to be poor. There's a lot of issues. There can be a lot of issues with specific diets, and so what I recommend individuals is think of a way of eating or a pattern of eating, a lifestyle where you can say, I can do this for the rest of my life. So, like with the Mediterranean diet, I can cut out red meat mostly for the rest of my life, and I can focus on fish or lean chicken, or I can focus on more of a vegetarian type style. If I incorporate red meats or fried meats, it's going to be very rarely, and it's going to be on special occasions or just as a treat. And so